They made us laugh for 9 seasons straight. But behind every smile, every punchline, every perfectly timed comeback, there was a life unraveling in silence. The cast of Everybody Loves Raymond gave America some of its most beloved television memories. And one by one, the people behind those memories have been taken from us. The list of losses keeps growing, and the truth behind each one is more heartbreaking than you ever imagined. If this hits you hard, make sure you subscribe to our channel, because we never let their stories be forgotten. Sawyer Sweden, Jeffrey Barone. He was the quiet one, the gentle twin who sat beside his brother in the Barone living room and made millions of viewers smile without saying a word. Sawyer Sweden stepped onto the set of Everybody Loves Raymond at just 1 year old, born on May 12, 1995 in Brownwood, Texas. For 9 seasons, he grew up under the studio lights, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and a family that felt as real on screen as it did off it. But when the cameras stopped rolling in 2005, Sawyer was only 10 years old, and the world that had felt so full suddenly went quiet. He stepped away from Hollywood entirely, retreating to a private life in Riverside, California, alongside his twin brother, Sullivan. The applause faded, the characters disappeared, and Sawyer was left to figure out who he was without Jeffrey Barone to guide him. Those who knew him described a young man who struggled deeply beneath a calm surface. Depression crept in where the spotlight once lived, and on April 23, 2015, just 3 weeks before his 20th birthday, Sawyer Sweden died by suicide at his home. The news shattered his former castmates and the millions of fans who had watched him grow up. He was 19 years old, young, talented, and gone far too soon. Doris Roberts, Marie Barone. If there was ever a character who could walk into a room and own it without saying a single word, it was Marie Barone. And the woman who brought her to life was every bit as remarkable. Doris Roberts was born on November 4, 1925 in St. Louis, Missouri, and spent her childhood in the Bronx after her father abandoned the family without warning. That early wound of absence never fully healed. And it quietly shaped every character she would ever play. She survived a failed marriage, single motherhood, and the grief of losing her second husband, William Goyen, to leukemia in 1983. Through all of it, she poured her pain into her craft. By the time Everybody Loves Raymond premiered in 1996, Doris was 70 years old, and she had earned every sharp glance and perfectly delivered jab that Marie Barone ever threw. She won 4 Emmy Awards for the role, becoming one of the most celebrated actresses in television history. But in her final years, Doris quietly battled chronic pulmonary hypertension. Every breath became a fight she refused to show the public. On April 17, 2016, she passed away at the age of 90, leaving behind a career that spanned more than 6 decades and a legacy that television will never forget. Peter Boyle. Frank Barone. He grumbled, he complained, he sat in his chair and delivered lines with a deadpan fury that made audiences howl with laughter, but Peter Boyle's path to that sofa was anything but ordinary. Born on October 18, 1935 in Norristown, Pennsylvania, he spent his early years in a monastery training to become a priest before a sudden change of heart pulled him toward the Chicago theater scene and eventually into film and television. His career nearly ended in 1990 when a massive stroke left him paralyzed on one side and unable to speak for 6 months. The industry moved on without him. But Peter Boyle did not give up. He fought his way back, won an Emmy for a guest role on The X-Files in 1996, and stepped into the role of Frank Barone that same year. Then, in 1999, he suffered a heart attack on set during filming. Through it all, he kept showing up. He kept delivering those iconic lines. He kept making people laugh. In his final years, Boyle battled multiple myeloma and heart disease with the same quiet determination he had shown throughout his life. On December 12, 2006, he passed away at a hospital in New York at the age of 71. He had donated much of his estate to cancer research. Frank Barone may have been grumpy and guarded on screen, but Peter Boyle, in the end, gave everything he had. Fred Willard, Hank McDougal. Fred Willard only appeared on Everybody Loves Raymond in a recurring role, but every time Hank McDougal walked through the door, the energy in the room changed. Fred had a gift that very few comedians ever truly possess: the ability to make something absurd feel completely sincere. Born on September 18, 1933 in Cleveland, Ohio, he had served in the military before finding his calling in comedy, eventually becoming one of the most beloved character actors in Hollywood history. Behind the scenes, Fred's final years were marked by loss and heartbreak. His wife of 50 years, Marie Lovell, passed away in 2018 after a long illness. The man who had made the world laugh for decades found himself facing a silence he had never prepared for. And the public humiliation of a 2012 arrest, despite no charges ever being filed, had left scars that never fully disappeared. Fred Willard passed away on May 15, 2020 at the age of 86 following cardiac arrest. He went out exactly the way he had lived, with grace, with humor, and without making a fuss. The entertainment world felt his absence immediately. Katherine Helmond, Lois Whelan. She had already made television history by the time she joined Everybody Loves Raymond in 2003. Born on July 5, 1929 in Galveston, Texas, Katherine Helmond rose from a childhood marked by the Great Depression to become one of the most iconic faces in American comedy. Her performance as Mona in Who's the Boss made her a household name across an entire generation. But in her final years, Katherine faced an enemy that no talent or determination could defeat. Alzheimer's disease crept in slowly, stealing her lines, her memories, and eventually the roles that had defined her life. Her husband of many decades became her caregiver, protecting what little remained of the world she had known. On February 23, 2019, Katherine Helmond passed away peacefully at her home in Los Angeles at the age of 89. Those close to her said that even near the end, the mention of certain character names could still bring a faint smile to her face. Georgia Engel, Pat McDougal. Sweet, soft-spoken, and utterly unforgettable, Georgia Engel brought a warmth to Pat McDougal that made Amy's mother one of the most quietly beloved characters on the show. Born on July 28, 1948 in Washington, D.C., Georgia had first captured America's heart as Georgette on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, a role so perfectly played that casting directors rarely imagined her in any other kind of character again. Georgia never married and devoted her life entirely to her faith and her art. As a devoted Christian Scientist, she held firm beliefs about healing through prayer rather than conventional medicine. When her health began to decline in her later years, she refused treatment. Colleagues worried, friends pleaded, but Georgia remained at peace with her decision. On April 12, 2019, she passed away quietly at her home in Princeton, New Jersey at the age of 70. No official cause of death was ever released. Their laughter lives on. From Peter Boyle's thunderous grumble to Georgia Engel's whispered warmth. The cast of Everybody Loves Raymond gave us something that television rarely delivers, a family that felt genuinely real. These were not just actors hitting their marks. They were people carrying invisible weight, fighting private battles, and still choosing to show up and make the world laugh. The list of those we have lost keeps growing longer, and every name on it is a reminder that behind the comedy, behind the perfectly rehearsed timing and the studio audience applause, there were real human beings, ones who deserved so much more than we knew to give them while they were still here. Which story moved you the most? Tell us in the comments below. And if this meant something to you, please like and subscribe so we can keep honoring the lives behind the stories we love.